And really what values are the ethos of a church, and they're like the culture, the DNAs. What is this church all about? Why do they do the things they do? And where are we headed in the future? See, we have a hope in Jesus that leads us to have a joy-filled life. So we lay down our lives, which leads us to our last value, is that joy will lead us to suffer because Jesus is worth it, meaning suffering is our friend. Jesus suffered for us. We count it a joy to suffer for him. We don't want to suffer, but we're willing to suffer to grow and reach others. And this comes from Philippians 3. It says, I want to know Christ. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and the participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Do you want to know how you know Christ? It's by participating in suffering for Christ. You get to know him. You get to know the power of his resurrection. You get to be in this beautiful suffering that is with Jesus. What I love about restoration is that we reveal our mess. Even as we share stories and we share about what God is doing in our life. If you notice, when we're up on stage, a lot of times we're sharing the hardship in our own lives. For me, I try to share what God is doing in my own life because it's messy. We are messy people. But what I've learned time and time again is that God always uses our mess to become our message. He always takes our brokenness, our hurt, our trouble, our pain, and he restores it and he makes it our message. Our name as a church is Restoration. And why is that? Because we all have a restoration story. We've all been hurt. We've all been broken. If you're at All City Sunday, you heard Holly's story of her brokenness. I look in here today and I see friends that have had to bury a child. They have a lot of hurt and brokenness in their life. I've seen friends that have gone through a messy divorce. I've seen friends that have lost family members and relationships and they're not speaking anymore. I've seen people get DUIs. I've seen people hurt and broken time and time again. This is our church. But we believe that Jesus restores all things. That you're not kicked to the curb because you have brokenness. You're not kicked to the curb because you're sinful. No, that is exactly where Jesus meets us, isn't it? We all have a restoration story. And why this is the ethos of our church is really from one person, I believe. Because every single person I talk to, they have kind of this story if you get to know them a little bit. But the one person this comes from is our founding pastor, Ron Johnson. When I met Ron, I just fell in love with Ron. I had this bromance with Ron. I met him in 2019, and I remember meeting Ron, and he was so much different. It was almost like meeting Kevin again. Different than any other pastor I met, because every pastor I met always tries to look good, wear the suit, never share how they're struggling. Ron wears his emotions and his blood on his sleeve. And I never met a pastor that was like, yeah, I had a terrible marriage. I lost my marriage. I lost the church that I built, and I saw God build back restoration. I go, man, I can trust that guy. It's hard to trust the person with no blood on their sleeve, isn't it? But I was like, man, I can trust and follow Ron Johnson. And I am so grateful because he has gone ahead of us. And this church is a church about restoration where every single person can have a restoration story. Can we just clap for Ron and thank him? See, Ron has suffered well, not because he hasn't suffered, but because he's brought Jesus and his brokenness into his suffering, and Jesus has restored him. See, in normal Christianity, American Christianity, we run from suffering. Here we allow suffering to be our message that we might impact the world around us. And when I came to Restoration, I actually needed a restoration story. So in 2019, I got stabbed in the back by ministry. My friends that I was on staff with, a few of them kind of formed this alliance against me and pushed Molly and I out of ministry and took the ministry away from us. And we were like, our life is done. We were broken, we were depressed, and we were 6 months of I will never do ministry again. I remember looking at Molly and go, we're never doing that again. Because when you do ministry, you love people, you give them their heart, and then they crush it. And I'm like, never doing that again. I'm never letting someone get that close. I'm never allowing people in my life again. Yet God, over those 6 months of prayer, wouldn't let us leave ministry. And God gave us a new vision. He was like, what if you move to Denver? You start this young professionals ministry, the Brook, and just start doing what you did for your whole life, which is just build relationships, invest in a person, and see what would happen. But we kind of made a pact, Molly and I. We're like, never let somebody super close though, because they will hurt you. And then I met Ron. And Ron was like the dad, the spiritual father I needed. And he brought me in close. And I remember walking with Ron in life, and he just helped restore my journey. And as we walked together, we both had this vision of what if we just made disciples? What if restoration? What if it was bigger than just this little church, but it was a movement of God? And as we started setting the values and as we started making it about making disciples, God started using our friendship to go, you know what? I think we're supposed to do things, we're better together. So I came on staff as that intern in 2020. And then God just started building in my heart that I was supposed to be here and I was supposed to be a pastor here. And I was like, I don't want to be a pastor, God. I don't want to bring people that close again. But as God restored my life and as God brought that in, I saw every single person, and I see people in here today that have been so meaningful to me, so impactful to my life, that have restored me, that have loved me, that have cared for me. And what God is gonna do through this church is amazing. I totally believe God is using this church not to grow a lake, but to be a river that impacts the world, to be a global movement. You notice that in our vision? We never say we're a church. Why? Because we're a global movement. We're gonna push everything out. We're gonna reach the ends of the earth because this city, Denver, is 2 to 3% Christian. We got to do something about that. And if Jesus is who he says he is, and he has the power of the cross to overcome all things, we better believe that he can still move today. Just like the early church, we could be a global movement of everyday disciples that make disciples for generations to come. I totally believe God is going to do a work. But you know how he's going to do it? He's going to do it through you guys. He always does it through you guys. And that's what we believe. When I came here, I never want to let anybody close again. God got me and people got close again. And this is now my simple church, my family that I love. It's the coolest picture I've ever taken. None of us are that cool at all. But these people, we've been able to disciple. We've been able to love. I've been able to see each one of these people just launch out and reach tons of people. I bet you if you're in here today, you've been impacted by one of these people on this board. And it was not anything we did. It was just by going, you know what? We're supposed to be a place where we can love people. We can make disciples that make disciples. All you need to do is be a disciple. Just follow Jesus. Take that next step and then just pass it on to somebody else. And I promise in the next years, we're gonna see God do miraculous things like he's already been doing, but to a greater degree, because multiplication will always beat addition. Would you pray with me?
We are so encouraged that you are choosing to learn more about our values here at Restoration Church. To learn about all of our other values, click the playlist right here. And if you want more content from Restoration, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the link right there. Thanks so much for watching. We love you.